WCCS 101.1 FM and AM 1160. Mr. Bob Pollock is with us. Bob Pollock from the Extension Service, and he joins us on this Friday morning. Our conversation with Mr. Pollock brought to you by Marcus & Mack, voted best personal injury law firm in the Best of Indiana County contest. Marcus & Mack, a law firm representing injured people. Good morning, Robert.
Good morning.
It's good to have you with us here today.
Good to be here.
Year-end checklist for our lawns and gardens and trees and everything. As we look to a new year, we make all kinds of resolutions, and I'm sure that somebody or other is out there saying, I'm going to make sure my yard is blank for this year. So let's fill in the blank. Checklist item number 1, the grass on the lawn. Not a whole lot we can do about that right now, but at some point we'll have to get it rolling again once it starts to green up again.
At the moment, in most places, we can take a look at it at least. We can see it now. Mm-hmm. It was covered in snow.
Yeah.
But most of that's melted off at this point. So you can start just kind of making assessments, just looking around. It's good not to ignore the whole garden for the winter. Mm-hmm. You know, just walk away. And now maybe if you go to Florida or something, that's the way it is. But just take a walk around. Are there things there that you'd like to improve? Are there things that you'd like to, well, and an improvement can be a change, you know, but change something, change this. Maybe you want to move a plant or two. Maybe when you originally put them in there, you thought this would look good, it would be the right plant for that spot. But then as it grew, maybe it outgrew that spot, or maybe it just wasn't right for there. Yeah. So you have another spot you want to move it to. That's actually something that as we get towards late winter, once the plant's dormant, you can move it, and really, if you can dig in the ground, if the ground's unfrozen enough that you can get down and dig that plant and move it, you could do that anytime during the winter.
It won't even know it's been moved.
Yeah, pretty much. And that way you can have that job done. Because the best time to do those sorts of things really is when the plant is dormant. Mm-hmm. It has the least amount of stress on it. And it notices it the least. If we do it during the growing season, then we have to pay a lot more attention to what we did, because in any case you're going to sever roots off, and then that affects that plant. So it's not going to be able to take up water as quick and all that. It still, in most cases, will survive, mm-hmm. But it's just been stressed. And so when the leaves are on there, when it's growing, when we have warmer temperatures and sunlight, all those things, cause the plant to function. And then if we've cut part of the root system off, we affect that ability to react and respond to those stressors that the plant gets on a regular basis. So, yeah, just taking a look at that. Are there holes or gaps or areas that you want to develop? Maybe you want to have a view. Maybe you used to have a view, uh-huh. and now the plants, right? Something's grown up. A tree or shrubs have grown up and blocked that view, and you really want to have that. So maybe that's an area that you look at, or maybe there's an open spot that now something's changed around you that you want to block a view. Mm-hmm. So just taking a look at that and seeing what are the options, and is it a fence made of structural material, wood or something like that, or a wall, or is it plant material that can serve that purpose that you want to do, and then go from there with that.
We were at FDR's estate a couple of years ago, Hyde Park in New York, and overlooking the Hudson River on the back end of the estate, very, very high up, he had a beautiful area that was laid out for him to just sit. He had a bench there and just sat there and used to watch the river and the river traffic. But that was back in the 1920s and 30s, and now the trees on the hillside coming up toward that area have grown so tall that a lot of that view is blocked. And that's what you're talking about.
Right. Yeah, those vistas, those views, and with all our hills and valleys and things we have around here, depending on where you live and how your house is sited, there may be views where that you can see for miles.
Yeah.
And you want to maintain that. That can be a very from a gardening perspective, just having that place where you can put a bench or a patio and be able to just sit out there and enjoy those views. Whether it's watching the sun come up or the sun set or storm fronts come in, and have as much warning as you can get. All those things can be, good reasons to have those viewpoints.
We watch cows.
Yeah, there you go. You can body score the cows when they go by.
That's exactly what we do. I wanted to ask you about this. Our garden is on a slope. The yard slopes downward. And at the bottom end of the garden, for years, of course, those nutrients have been washing down so that the grass and the lawn at the bottom end of that garden every spring is so thick and so lush. But those nutrients should be up in the garden feeding the vegetable crops, and they keep washing down. I can't get those ones back into the garden, but what is the best way to prevent those nutrients from leaching out? Is it as simple as driving in fence posts or some barrier that's going to do that?
Now, you could shift your garden.
That ain't happening.
And move it. Then you can take advantage of those nutrients that maybe have
all those
have
rocks
shifted.
I've spent 30 years picking out of there, I'm not going to start a new patch, I can tell you that.
And you can do that just as wide as, a bed, a 3 or 4 foot bed. It doesn't have to move the whole entire garden, but maybe you expand this, you shorten the top side, and just shift the whole thing down 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 feet.
So I follow the nutrients.
Yeah, follow the nutrients.
Uh-huh.
Part of nutrient retention deals with holding the soil in place.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, we have different types of soils. So typically, if we're higher in elevation around here, we tend to have shalier soils.
Uh-huh.
When we get to the bottom of the slopes, or sometimes even in the middle of the slope, we can get into more clay, heavier, denser soils. And it's especially up on those tops of the hills where we have to pay more attention to that because we have more shaly conditions there.
Mm-hmm.
And so we can have greater erosion and leaching of nutrients that are applied. So just, knowing your soil type can help with that. The more cover we have for the longer period of time, the more we'll retain nutrients and not have them leave the site. And typically how we get them leaving the site, other than by growing plants, when we grow a plant, those plants absorb nutrients.
Mm-hmm.
And then when we harvest the plant, we're removing some of those nutrients that plant has been using or absorbing. Mm-hmm. And then we eat that. So we recycle things in that manner. But then if we physically have, a big rainfall that literally moves soil, and all we have to do is look in our streams when we've had a rain event or flooding event and look at the color of the water, and we can know right away that there are soil particles in there. If it's brown, murky water, there's soil moved from somewhere. So there's not only soil particles in there, but there's also nutrients that are moving along with that.
Mm-hmm.
So we're just trying to hold that soil in place. So, of course, growing the crops there helps hold things in place. Cover crops, for this time of year, throughout the winter, just having a cover on there. And then in the spring, when we tend to have, some bigger rainfalls and events like that we also have cover there to hold those nutrients in place.
Mm-hmm.
Now, some nutrients, phosphorus is one that's very well held on the soil particles. You can apply phosphorus, and sometimes it can be even hard for the plant to get it.
Uh-huh.
So depending on the soil pH range that it's in will dictate the availability of those nutrients and how well they're held in place Nitrogen is an example of one that's not held in place. So that's one we tend to put on in little bits. We look at the crop we're growing and try to put on the right amount of nitrogen that crop needs and not over apply it, because then we really increase the chance that that'll be in the water. So when it rains, the water will pick up nitrogen as it goes through the soil profile, and it leaches not necessarily horizontally across the ground, but vertically down into the ground and then down into the groundwater.
And DEP guys in white suits with
And that's where
hazmat
sampling,
suits show up.
sampling in streams and pipes and all that, we can determine, what the characteristics of that particular water source are, and whether there might be issues there or not.
We are just about out of time. Wish you a Happy New Year.
Same to you.
Are you
and
farm
our
showing
listeners.
next week at this time?
Yes.
You are.
So I will call in and we
Yay.
can
And we'll talk about the butter sculpture.
talk about
It
that
is.
and what might be going on for the next week. So the 7th to the 14th are the official days for the farm show, Saturday to Saturday.
Looking forward to it. Looking forward to that visit as well. You can tell us all about it. It is the voice of Indiana County, WCCS, 101.1 FM and AM 1160. We are 2 minutes away from 8 o'clock, and Fox News coming your way then, and then a visit from the WCCS Newsroom, check of sports as well. It's Indiana in the Morning, always presented by First Commonwealth Bank on the voice of Indiana County, WCCS, 101.1 FM, AM 1160.